or two.
Guys, welcome to Black Scout Survival Late Night Live. I'm your host, Jack Richland, and your best friend. Thanks for hanging out with me. Anyway, so this video is pretty important. This is probably the most important moments in history as we've seen that the government is now talking about neuroweapons. They're basically admitting that mind control tech exists, and it's being used on Americans, and there's a whole lot of government cover-up. We're actually going to touch back on some things from previous videos that I've talked about that you may not have watched. You may not have been subscribed to the channel. You may not have paid attention because it wasn't a sexy video topic. But I also got my good friend Mark from Centerline Systems in the house tonight. Mark has had a career in the military. He's got a master's of business. He's also was part of the agency, or Central Intelligence Agency, as some people like to call it. Spooky. But the thing is and before we get started into the content, I do kind of want to talk about that a little bit because a lot of people, have misconceptions to that. But Mark served in a few different roles, but one of those roles was being part of Ground Branch. Mark, and if I say something incorrectly, just correct me. And Ground Branch, Special Activities Division, which is like the tip of the spear when you're talking about paramilitary operations. This is what SEAL Team 6 guys and Delta Force want to grow up to become, okay? And the thing is that if you're talking about real life Jason Bourne stuff, this is the guy. So it's a paramilitary organization, so they conduct essentially military type operations, and they usually work alone or in groups of two, right? And you're doing extremely black op covert missions.
Yes. So, well, first and foremost, as always, thank you for having me on, and you've got just such a great a following and base, and I just it's always just an honor to be in front of the men and women who follow you and comment.
Good people. Yes.
Yeah, well, so I'll just say I follow you too, and I love watching your videos in the morning, but I'm listening to you talk, but I love reading the comments from, your tribe. And I really respect that, what you're doing. But I just, on that last note right there, I think the last time I was on, some people said it's once this and once of that. I'm like, yeah, that's not really how that works, but whatever, you can throw me under the bus all you want, but I'm just proud to be here. And I think, my actions and my character speak louder than your assumption of where I used to work, suddenly defines who I am. So
yeah. To speak to a little bit of that. So Mark's absolutely correct, man. My subscribers are the best people.
Yeah.
I see a lot of other content creators. My subscribers are the best group of people, man. I love them. They motivate me, especially with the shadow banning that's been happening. I've been getting really demotivated. I'm not gonna lie. I've multiple times this week, I'm like, I just don't even want to make a video. The shadow banning, demonetization, it almost makes it not worth it, but I want to do it because the people that follow the channel, and again, to Mark's thing, a lot of people say CIA. They always say, oh, you're CIA business partner. The CIA one is very compartmentalized. Okay. So the guys that work doing evil stuff to Americans are so compartmentalized. Other guys in the agency don't know anything about that or any part of that. Mark spent his time working with DevGru and Delta Force. So if you want to say that Mark is one of these evil people, then you have to say SEAL Team 6 and DevGru guy. And from what Mark said, a lot of Special Activities Division or Ground Branch, and Mark, if I'm talking too much, man, just stop me, but are made up from Marine Corps veterans, correct? They pull a lot of Marines for the Special Activities Division.
Yeah, and I'm not going to throw you or the Marine Corps into the bus. I actually did a lot of by, with, and through in the Marines, especially in my very first tour in the agency overseas. And in my military experience before that, I'd only been around the Marines a handful of times. And I'm here to tell you, I still have a handful of these people, who are my friends still to this day. who I broke cover with, gave my true name to, and came back to the States and attended a wedding. So the Marine Corps really is a special organization. There's just no doubt about it. But I just want to make one last comment to what you're kind of saying, and I got to give you props for what you're developing. So the Marine Corps is a community, right? It's a brotherhood, and and you mentioned this in kind of your last video. So what you're trying to develop, within Black Scout and the Discord, and I mean this seriously. I'm just, for everybody watching and for you in particular, I love reading the comments as we're talking. And I'm always watching because I'm old and this is too late for me more than not, but I watch it the next day. You've got a really good group of people who kind of get it and who really are.
Yeah, I'm trying to build that same brotherhood, man.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've told you, because we're close friends, and I've told you many times that whenever I got the Marine Corps, man, I lost that brotherhood, and I was in a state of depression, and so I had to build it with Black Scout. I did. I had to develop that and build that community, be part of something bigger than myself. And one guy here just said that Mark is very humble, and this is the thing: Mark will never ever say anything like what I just said about him. Mark is, Brandon Sweeney says Mark's one of the most humble, awesome, down to earth action guys. He is. When I tell you that Delta Force and SEAL Team 6 guys want to grow up to be what Mark was, it's absolutely true. It's one of the most difficult selection processes in the United States, military or government agencies. And you work alone in very dangerous environments. Certain death, doing extreme black ops missions, and they don't even use this type of words. I'm using them because it's sexy, and it's true. But the thing is that Mark brings a lot of insight, and the reason why I'm bringing him on tonight is because of his insight as to working in the Central Intelligence Agency. Now, did he work on freaking neuro weapons against Americans? Hell no, he didn't. Matter of fact, he left the agency because of the bullshit that was going on there. So, and you can speak to that, Mark.
Let me just I'll speak to that, but let me just take a step back. So there's guys in DevGru who can swim way better than me. There's no doubt about that. There's guys in Delta who've done the long march. I've done some things, and I've done the Star Chamber and all that kind of crap. But there's definitely great men out there who've got all kinds of capabilities. But I just want to echo back to what you said, and I do not mean this to sound like egotistical or whatever, but I think honestly, Jack, the real difference in my opinion is simply that I didn't have a fire team with me. I didn't have that you've
You're
got
alone.
this,
yeah,
seriously,
you're alone with a radio and a rifle and a bag of money.
I got to dance around this, but your viewers are smart enough. So I was in a location where there was a revolution, and it was me and one other American, and we're downrange. There's no support.
You know what this is, guys. You know what this
I got no close air support. I got no, CSAR. I've got no indirect. I've got no, I've got nothing. It's me, one other guy. We've got, Glocks and a translator, and I'm hanging out with terrorists. I mean, no shit terrorists. So I think we're either stupid or I don't know, but we're not maybe, yeah. But then bringing it back all the way to your point, when it comes into some of the operations and the way that the agency conducts its operations, and I don't know if I'm kind of leading you here, but it isn't what people think it is. It's not the movies. It's just not that at all. And it's incredibly compartmentalized. And I'm sure some of your viewers, because you got a really smart, audience, but look, you're going to have to talk about special access programs. And I can say I'm cleared to say this. I actually had to go through a process to be cleared to talk about my background and whatever. So I'm TSSCI, so that means I have a top secret clearance, but I went through a full scope polygraph and all this other, in constant background investigations and constant reinvestigations. But even then, that doesn't mean I know everything the CIA is doing. You have to have special access to that. So I had special access to a variety of programs that I was dealing with. And I'm just going to be a little bit hesitant to talk about too much, but you get the point. It's
the
Jack
right
and I,
the left hand's doing, even though you're under the same organization. Yes. This guy don't know what this guy does at all, and they cannot talk about it whatsoever.
And that can work for both the in a positive and a negative thing. So imagine if you and I, just like on the split screen right now, you're working, I'm just going to make this up. Let's say you're working the Iranian target and I'm over here working the Iraqi target. But if you and I, because of our access, if we're not sharing information that you have that could have been beneficial for all of us, you're not able to share with me because I don't have access or I don't have the clearance to be. Yeah, exactly. So when you go back into time, it was even worse. Well, I honestly, I don't know, because I wasn't alive in the 50s and the 60s during some of this MK Ultra and things like that. But I honestly, you know what? I didn't think about this until right now. I bet it's even worse right now, sir. Honestly.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought up MK Ultra, because the biggest indicator that should be to the American public is the fact that they would not release JFK files. You know, I've done tons of research on Lee Harvey Oswald. He was a Marine. He was not a sniper, you know, and these sort of things. He was just a basically trained Marine. For him to make this shot, we've had actual Marine Corps scout snipers try to make that shot and could not. So the fact that they have it sealed it should be, you know, evidence enough that MK Ultra exists. Now, what I want to do to start off this video, I want to play a clip from Homeland Security where they're talking about the Havana Syndrome as well as neurotech that's being weaponized against Americans and potential enemies to America. So I'll go ahead and play that real quick.
As if your assessments here are correct, these are very covert weapons, aren't they?
That's correct. There's no entry or exit wound. How they're designed is to make the target feel like they're crazy, like they're imagining things.
And you guys also said that these attacks are happening right here in this city. Is that correct?
I mean, there have been some that have gone public with respect to Washington, D.C.
I think it was Mr. Grozev said you spoke to a Russian agent who said that they believe that Americans are using these same weapons on them. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Might that have something to do with part of the CIA's motive to cover up the existence of this tech and these weapons?
That is a very logical possibility.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from New York, Mr. Goldman, for his round of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for being here. Mr. Grozev, I want to follow up a little bit on the interactions you've had with Russian intelligence about these AHIs. And Mr. Zaid, I want to ask, and this is a hypothetical, but I'm trying to understand why our government would try to block information sharing or conceal information that they have. And one thing that comes to mind is whether there's an operational risk to revealing any of the details of their investigation. Is that something that you have come across in any of your work?
There's a lot of reasons why the information might not be publicly released. And I do think that's something we could address more in a classified environment to explain that.
He hit it on the head with that question.
But there are understandable reasons why the U.S. government has not revealed much of what it knows.
There's some long-term things that needs to be done in terms of new acts, but in the short term, we need to do things like implement the original Havana Act. Yeah. DOD still hasn't done it. They still have not implemented the Havana Act. And we need a VA diagnostic code. Thanks to the VFW brothers and sisters that are here today and for your meeting earlier, we don't have a VA diagnostic code for the 500-some DOD survivors. Yeah. How are they going to get long-term care and disability without that?
Yeah. Well, I hope this issue you see in a room that is.
So in the Havana Syndrome that they're talking about, I actually saw this a little, maybe a year ago. And if you pull Wikipedia here, it says anomalous health incidents. It's a disputed medical condition, primarily of diplomatic, intelligence, and military officials stationed overseas locations. The problem is when you go down here now, what I had heard, this was earlier this year, that there was a lot of diplomats that were facing this so-called Havana syndrome. And when I mentioned in a video, no one actually even heard about this. So it was pretty new. So here we got March 2023, U.S. Intelligence Agency report. The House Intelligence Committee released a report titled Intelligence Community Assessment, which essentially said that there was no credible evidence that a foreign adversary has a weapon or collection device being used. But it comes out after, obviously, this freaking hearing that it's true. So they lied to the American public, as we should expect them to, but it turns out to be true.
So let me just ask you a question. So why would our government lie to us about this, whether this is a threat that's being perpetuated or implemented or instigated against us by a hostile actor? But why would our government lie about that? That would be my
because
first
they're
question.
using it.
Or
That would be
we have been meddling and just like look, you could just take this even all the way into AI. I'll just go all the way back into Havana syndrome. So the research and the development. So think about DARPA, think about, anything evil. I mean, like, I don't want to start naming names, but like, I'm thinking about some like, political families that have like a long history of like killing off their, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So, but if you start going down that road, and if you have the power of the United States government, the power of the purse, the power of that, that black budget, of course we are working and developing this. This is open. Like, I'm not sharing anything, that I'm not authorized to talk about. This is all open source information. Of course, we have been developing this, and other countries have been developing this for a long time. It's open source. Just look into microwave weapens, microwave emitters. Yeah,
I found this from 2019. The government is serious about this is on what website is this? Live Science. The government is serious about creating mind control weapons. And you're talking about DARPA, which is the defense research arm, is paying scientists to invent ways to instantly read soldiers' minds using tools like genetic engineering of the human brain, nanotechnology, and infrared beams. Now, I'm not sure if you saw this, Mark, or the guys watching has seen this, but Zuckerberg, as well as the other I think it's Zuckerberg, is working on some way to, and I think Elon Musk is as well, to get nanotechnology when you're using the app or something.
So Musk's recent adventure in that kind of realm. So even if Musk is failing right now, so they just had a setback, but it doesn't take away from that's public knowledge. What is going on behind the scenes that's not being public knowledge? So these advances, the continuation of this technology, the continuation of these studies, these experiments, that is still progressing, even from the 50s under Gottlieb and MK Ultra and X, Y, and Z. So unfortunately, the unelected officials in our government are going to continue pursuing this for either their own selfish interests or their own political objectives, or some misguided, view of like, well, this will be the wonder weapon that helps us defeat X, Y, and Z. Although it probably will be the thing that, brings about, in my humble opinion, like, the destruction of society and things of that nature. So,
so it's funny. A few years ago, my wife, she's from Maryland originally, up there, that base, I can't remember the name of it, but they had a CIA research lab there for biochemical weapons. And you know what I'm talking about, Mark? Which one it is? It's up in Frederick, Maryland.
I don't know what you're talking about.
The name. It starts with a D. Somebody probably in the comments will know.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I'll defer to your great audience. So I'm not going to talk about it.
Her neighbor, family was on this show. So her friends from back home said, "Hey, they're up here filming a show about this guy," and he was part of Fort Detrick. That's it. So he was up there as a scientist working for the CIA at Fort Detrick, coming up with these bioweapons. And what they were doing was some kind of mind control stuff, giving them LSD and what have you. This dude was essentially murdered by the CIA, and Jimmy Carter came out and did an investigation. They wound up admitting to it, giving millions of dollars to the family. And she knew this family. Like it in the town, everybody knew this guy was murdered. He was thrown out of a building, which is CIA textbook way of suiciding someone, you know. And so yeah, he got taken out. So this has been going on a very, very long time.
You know, I'm not trying to open up another can of worms, but to the point you're getting at and you're talking about, there is an unfortunate long history of, you know, rather coincidental and circumspect and kind of like, wow, isn't that odd type of situations where so many people, as you and I were talking about, you know, the other day, you know, just all the whistleblowers from Boeing, you know, like, oh really? Like, because that's not how coincidence works. That's right. So yeah, you're absolutely right. So, and I think that is what each and every one of us as Americans, we all have the right. I mean, that's matter of fact, I don't think it's our constitutional right. I think it's exactly what's expected of us from our forefathers. We should be questioning this stuff and asking questions. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Like, you know, you kind of mentioned Oswald and Kennedy earlier, you know, and I'll just kind of turn it over to you. Like, I know, you know, I've known you for a while. I've seen you, you know, like, do you think you could have pulled that off?
No,
Come on, man. No, something's not right there. So when we get into mind control, and I would just say this. So maybe here's my best way of kind of coming back to the mind control, MK Ultra, and that kind of realm of conversation. I left the agency at the end of 2011, beginning of 2012. It's 2024 right now. Can you imagine? So the things that I'm still not even, you know, cleared to talk about, imagine the advances in technology that have taken place in the last 12 years. And, you know, and so again, back to the things, you know, programs and operations that I didn't even have access to. What was going on back there and where we are today? Plain and simple.
Exactly. And so there's this funny thing I stumbled upon this evening when I was looking for information in regard, because there's not much information out there. Even after this congressional hearing, there's very little information about it. But I found this article. So this journalist, Curtis Waltman, was writing to the Washington State Fusion Center, and it was a joint operation between Washington State law enforcement and the federal government to request like a FOIA request about Antifa and white supremacist group. He got responses to the questions asked, but also got a file titled EM Effects on Human Body.zip. Inside the documents, there were mind control information from a project like this right here, Psychoelectronic Weapons Effects. This is dated from 1974. And if you look through here, there's just various different things here so they've been playing with this stuff for a very long time. So some of these images that were released were from the NSA. And it's funny because a guy brought a lawsuit against NSA after these things were published accidentally in 1992, because the NSA, he was claiming that the NSA had the ability to assassinate U.S. citizens covertly or run covert psychological control operations to cause subjects to be diagnosed with ill mental health. And so this guy that was writing about Antifa got all this information by accident on a FOIA request. This was top secret stuff, should not have been released. But obviously they dumped everything after that. So it just shows you how just easy our federal government is to just drop information, number one. But number two, that this stuff has existed for a very long time. They've never stopped. MK Ultra was like the very beginnings. And it's funny because, like I mentioned, the Jason Bourne series, I actually love that freaking series. It's one of my favorites. But that's essentially a mind control thing, right?
Yeah.
So you have to imagine, if not the U.S. government, other foreign governments has probably tried to weaponize humans. We know they have. Okay, we know they have. But everybody's doing it, weaponizing humans, because what better asset than a human? And I don't want to, you know, if I'm trying to ask you any questions that you can't talk about, but when you look at a person, right? You can have all the gear in the world, but when you go out as working in your field in the agency, this is everything. It's everything. You can go into an environment with your training, soft skills. Like we always talk, me and you talk about this all the time. Soft skills defeat all gear. People gear things up. Soft skills is it. That's what separates the men from the boys.
One of the best lines I ever heard from a guy I never even did anything downrange with, but he was from Delta, Sergeant Major, and he said, it's easy to teach people how to shoot. It's difficult to teach people how to think. So I think that goes immediately in line with what you're just talking about right there. And I'm just going to add to this. So if you think, the 50s and the 60s, what our government was doing, there's no, that's objective fact. This isn't, conspiracy theory. This isn't speculation. That's objective fact. And I wasn't part of that program. I wasn't even born then, right? But that's objective fact. So just fast forward to 2024 and imagine what we're doing right now. So again, that's what I was trying to say with like the things that I knew when I left and, end of 11 and 12, imagine where we are right now. So take that time from the 50s and 60s, and I'll just throw modern technology into it. Think about AI, think about CRISPR, think about, our better understanding about drugs and neurotoxins and how these, of course,
social media even.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, like that's, again, that goes into psyops and all that kind of stuff. If you're getting everybody go for that dopamine hit, you're conditioning people. It's the same friggin' thing as giving them the LSD or whatever they were doing back in whatever crazy things in the 50s and 60s they were doing. We're doing it like 10 times, probably. It's all speculation. Don't anybody, and I'm not suicidal, but don't anyone take my word for it. But of course, we're doing even more than that. And just look at that new space race for AI and other advanced technologies and other advances in, well, here, I'll just take the COOF and something that no one wants to talk about, but how did that not socially program everybody? Isn't that part of the 100%. Same? Yeah.
People are different now. People are different, and going back to propaganda, social media, I did a video, I didn't get a lot of views, but I was talking about China developing a brain control weapon, and they were using something to try to get it where essentially soldiers of a certain military would attack each other on the battlefield. Now, I found this article here, and it said inside the ring, Chinese brain warfare includes sleep weapons, thought control. So if we go back to TikTok and just other things, propaganda, what is happening now amongst the U.S. and how many people are fighting amongst each other? The country's so divided. And if you were wanting to stage some kind of war and not have to step foot on it, what would you do? You would do exactly that, right?
Well, so I just started writing down a note and to try to answer you right there. So I was going to say, to anybody watching, and your customer base, your listeners or anybody who just watches this live or on demand, extrapolate what you just said. So, take my personal experience. I was highly trained in how to look, and some people are not going to like what I'm about to say, but it just is. So it is manipulation to some extent. It is learning body language. It's learning how to talk to people and identify their strengths, their weaknesses, their motivations, their vulnerabilities. We're doing it for, good, right? We're trying to get somebody to come over to our side and help our side win. But imagine, extrapolate that. That's just me and you talking. That's me bumping you in a bar. That's me meeting you at an embassy function. That's me meeting you. Like I'm creating a scenario in which I meet you scuba diving or whatever. Imagine what Jack just said right there. Extrapolate that into where we can go with technology and other devices and other means. So if I'm the individual and I was very successful at it, if I'm able to do that on an individual level, imagine where we can do if we start integrating technology. Like you just said, TikTok, social media, X, Y, and Z, MK Ultra, those guys would be like, grinning from ear to ear and just like, holy shit, you guys have taken this to a whole nother level at this point.
But I think that a lot of people hear this and they're thinking hocus pocus, but I believe this stuff is already underway. I believe it's already happening. And what we're seeing, like we talk about all the time, fifth generation warfare, is happening. And a lot of people are just oblivious to it because of the circus and bread, you know, and it's going to catch a lot of people by surprise. But, you know, you and I were talking on the phone earlier today about soft skills, you know, and a lot of people are oblivious to those things as well. And you make videos on it. I make videos on it, you know, and we plan to do more. But just even talking about personal security earlier, whenever we're talking about doing, you know, cleaning runs, you know, different trade craft on personal security, you know, make sure you're not being followed. These sort of things, not make sure, you know, counter surveillance type stuff. A lot of people just don't even think about this. And a lot of people could say, oh, you're paranoid. I think we're in the time to be paranoid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it almost feels like you're a dinosaur and you see the comet coming or the asteroid.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, now is time to be paranoid. It probably is. You're absolutely right. And I would just simply say to anybody, like, if you think that, you know, this conversation or what you just said or what I'm saying, if you think it's over the top and it is paranoia and it's, you know, conspiracy theory, well, just wait, you know, another, you know, 6 weeks and we'll be proven, you know, correct, because history has already proven that stuff, right? I mean, like, this is not conspiracy theory. You know, what happens when all the conspiracy theories keep coming to be, you know, keep being proven true? Everything from the to, you know, whatever our government is doing, what our government continues to do. And I just want to, like, be on the record for saying this. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I really don't care about political parties. I believe in freedom. I believe in America. I believe in our Constitution. And I don't think some things that our government does and is doing to this day, and a lot of that is, you know, it's totally speculative on my part based on my interpretation of the news and how I'm seeing things. But just like Jack and just like all of you guys and gals, you're not idiots. You can read between the lines. We can see what's taking place here. And you've done a great job of highlighting this a lot of times. I loved one of your last videos, like talking about, you know, 5-0 and, you know, like thinking they're like, you know, doing the second battle of Fallujah and shit. You know? yeah. But that is what we're being conditioned to accept. And that is part of mind control. That is exactly how you control the masses. And if you know, again, if you want to go back into the COOF, I'll just go into that one last time. That, in my humble opinion, was clearly designed to set the stage mentally for a large percentage of the population and just to test the waters to see how we can manipulate the population.
And how strong media manipulates the population. And, you know, I'm not sure if you know, can speak to this or if you know about this, but I have to believe that there's intelligence agencies operating within our media, mainstream media realm. You know, and I've heard things in the past. I've read things. I've read that certain news anchors have been intelligence assets. You know, and so because they go to foreign countries, go meet with terrorists, they use this as their cover. You know, and you can just, you know, nod your head if you can't talk about it, what have you. But
no, I'll add my 2 cents because I'm not in that organization anymore, and I would have had an issue with this even when I was in that organization. Like, there's some things that we shouldn't tread upon. That's the way I'll say it. Like, to your point, if we really want to be that beacon on the hill, and if we really want to, you know, like, be impeachable, right? Like in our actions and our comments, then there's certain areas we shouldn't tread in. They should be neutral. The media, you know, the Peace Corps, you know, like aid organizations. You know, I'm just not 100% sure how that's working because so many people have sold their souls out. And that's one of the reasons I left. Is like,
it's funny you said Peace Corps because I've heard a great cover. You know, I've heard.
Yeah. So whatever that cover is that you're thinking of that we shouldn't be intruding into, we've just gone down the road where we just keep effing it up all the time.
So
and
let me see if you can answer this for me because I have my own theories. Now, the intelligence agency is not supposed to work in the realm of the United States. However, they have methods if it's, say, connection to an outside foreign country, a foreign enemy, that they can operate within the U.S. And if you can't talk about it, you can't talk about it.
No, I'm again, I am totally, fully cognizant of what I can and cannot say, and I will go all the way up to the line of what I can and cannot say. And when I can't say something, I'll simply say, I just really can't say it because I'm still under some type of obligation, and I would potentially be, and shit, in this current regime, I probably would be thrown on the bus and I'd be in jail for so yeah, I'm fully aware, dude. Ask away. I'm good to go. I'm an adult.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm getting to is that a lot of people have the assumption that the agency cannot work in the United States.
That's not true at all.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not true at all. I mean, so again,
there's ways they can manipulate it and massage it that they can operate within the United States.
Without getting into the details, and people can go look it up. I mean, there's titles, there's obligations or authorities, Title 10, Title 52, Title 30, go do your own research. But even within those authorities, there are always exceptions. And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I kind of knew that just over the years, but a lot of people are under the assumption that you can't. It's kind of like how they say the military can't operate in the U.S., which is also not true because there's been multiple times that they have, like Waco. Delta Force was in Waco, if you didn't know. They were there. As well as a lot of other times in history where they use them. They'll attach groups to FBI and such and use them in that capacity. Will they be conducting an outright military operation in the U.S.? No. But they will have ways to get around it.
Well, again, just throwing this out for your viewers. I mean, and I'm sure there's a lot of your viewers who follow exactly what you're talking about, but there's, if you go all the way into, I can't remember what it's called, Jade Dragon, and like there's been a lot of operations. There's like straight up video of like, MH6 little birds, coming into like, a city someplace doing operations. And I'll just, a little personal, point of privilege. I remember so I'm in the Army Reserve. We're doing a counter drug mission. It's a very real world mission because our adversaries, they would have no problem they wouldn't hesitate to kill you. But part of that whole thing is a lot of Americans had gone over to their side and were working, taking their knowledge and their background and then working for evil and doing that stuff. So, and during those periods of, whether you want to call it uncertainty or as you're just it's a new problem. You're just learning how to react to it. You don't know if you should be throwing jabs or uppercuts. I mean, shit happens. And so I was not personally involved, but, anecdotally, I know some examples where posse comitatus was definitely violated. And, United States military, active duty military forces were conducting operations in American soil and conducting operations ultimately like that.
This is a funny story, man. I had just got out of boot camp, and whenever you're in the Marine Corps, you get out of boot camp, you try to get on something called recruiter's assistance, where you can go play recruiter for like 30 days.
Yeah, good gig.
Yeah. That way you can go show all your uniform off to all the young ladies you used to see in high school and stuff. Graduated at college or whatever. Anyway, so I was walking into the recruiting station downtown in the city, and this news truck was out there at the recruiting station, and this news reporter, this young lady, comes up to me and says, "Hey, we'd like to question you about what the Marines are doing down here today." And so I said, "Yeah, we're just doing recruiting, And she said, "No, she's like they're fast roping onto this building." And so this was going on right here, Operation Urban Warrior. I had no idea what this was. Marines were on skateboards wearing this funky camouflage right here. Now, the weirdest thing in the world, this is so not talked about. You know what I mean? And just so happened because it was happening in my city, and it was happening in cities all across the United States, right? And they were linked up with law enforcement agencies around the country. Now, they did not document all of the places this was happening at, and not even my city. And I was like, what in the world? And so I talked to some of these guys who are carrying skateboards and wearing this funky camouflage. Why in the hell would you be doing this type of training? You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense.
Well, no, it actually, it does. It goes to your point about conditioning, whether we want to use MK Ultra as the point of intersection of the conversation, but it's about conditioning. It is about psyops. It's about getting people used to something. So again, everybody do their own research, but there's tons of civilian there it is. It's legit. Here's little birds landing in a street and people are going out and they're practicing, a raid, they're going on a high value target, or that right there. But all of that is, if you really take a step back and think about it. Now, sometimes it's just legitimate training, and this is what we have to do, because we do, as war fighters, whether it's on the intelligence side or the actual direct action side, we need those opportunities, and we have to, go from just the classroom into a more, robust or vibrant or, uncertain type of reality, or environment, because that helps us get better. But it also, if you were evil, it's also conditioning everybody to get used to that kind of stuff. And it's getting people to, like, oh yeah, put your mask on or you go to jail, or do this, or, it really has a lot to do with that. So again, going all the way back into I don't know if you want to, again, you want to call it a psyop, or if you want to call it on conditioning, social conditioning. I mean, that is a legitimate thing.
That's a great word. And I think that's probably the best one to even kind of umbrella term for what we're talking about. Social conditioning.
No, I mean, just think of the other side of that. And again, I'm kind of appealing to your audience, because I am one of your, I am part of your audience, and I see the comments. But what would be the other side of that social conditioning? No one has any gender. Everybody can do everything. Everybody's just think of what's happening.
To break down all the constructs of our society to start over again. That's what you do with a revolution.
Yep. Christians are evil. Families are bad. Yep.
And you and I have been talking about this for years, but the deconstruction of America, the attack on Christianity. I mean, and it's so prevalent, and a lot of people are just, again, oblivious to it, but they're directly attacking Christianity. And unless you're a Christian, you may not put two and two together of what's happening, but it's definitely the foreshadowing of what's coming. And some guys wearing some sheets and was rocking sandals back a few thousand years ago wrote about this in a book that it just turns out to be becoming true now. The social conditioning is definitely happening, and I think it's on fast forward. You see it every day. When I see Karine Jean-Pierre on the stand every day telling absolute lies or evading questions, or changing the narrative daily, you see news organizations actually complete fabricating stories. It's happening, and a lot of people are oblivious to it. Thank the good Lord that we have social media, that we can actually discuss real topics of what's going on, and that's why Mark's in the tribe as well. But having a group of people that, a community that, lean on each other, is the most important thing. Community trumps everything. Community trumps training. It trumps gear. It trumps it all. It is. If you look at the various decline of countries around the globe, when you see people that rebuild or that take over, even from a militant standpoint, it's all because of their community that they had.
Yeah. Going back to your KJP, you're like, and no one in that journalistic, if you want to call it journalist, but no one in that community is there's maybe one or two people, right? But whatever, it's kind of like, even that is still soft pedaled. But you are absolutely right. So that community is already lost. I mean, unless you go into alt media, and that's why I got to give up. I know somebody's gonna say Mark's a sycophant, but I really mean it. You are creating community, and this is something and I'm saying it because I believe in it personally. This is how we have to fight against that MK Ultra or whatever that social conditioning or whatever is happening to us right now, because we all know it. We all, even if you can't put your finger on it, this is what's going on.
Yeah, something's not right.
Yeah, something's not right. So that's why it's so important what you're doing and what other people are trying to do. Because I mean, social media is still a tool. It is still a weapon in our.
Yes, it's a weapon, and use the enemy's weapons against them. 100%.
Yep. No.
And speaking of that, Mark is on social media. He puts together great podcasts all the time on his channel. So make sure you go follow him. We're at 45 minutes, so I don't want to keep it too late. yeah, Mark's got to get to bed too. He's an older guy now, so But
Can I give you the middle finger here on your live stream? I mean, thank you, but you're right. I'm probably way past my bedtime.
but yeah, guys, make sure you follow Mark. Mark's one of my closest friends. He's a great man, and he's a guy I really trust. And we talk all the time about the decline of America and things like that. And he puts together great content, and he's got a wealth of information. He is the guy. Okay.
If I can just add to what you're saying and just maybe just kind of segue, it doesn't matter if it's you, it doesn't matter if it's me, it doesn't matter if anyone has a cult of personality, or if they like what your content is, or how you deliver it, or whomever the case is. My big thing that I'm doing going forward right now is it's time for everybody to get to the adult table. You can sit at the kiddie table. If you want to be, you got to get to the adult table. So you got to follow take somebody else's example, use that as motivation, get out there and start you got to be your own leader of your own fire team, your own community now more than ever, because that's the only way we're going to win. And if anybody just like you, hey, why aren't you doing this way? Are you friggin' kidding me? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. The way we do this is what you're doing right now. And what I think I think people are waking up to it, where there's more of us trying to do it. And I'm not going to lie. I was hesitant to do it because I was running the business. And then it's no, I just can't.
Yeah. And I remember those talks, man. We had those talks 3 years ago because I started doing, and I started losing a lot of followers, a lot of customers. I mean, guys that were loyal customers that bought thousands of dollars worth of gear told me to go F off because I was speaking against these things. And you and I talked about it a lot. And, you had the motivation to do it as well. And I was like, man, it's going to come with risk. You're going to be demonized by the community. Some of the communities we were part of before were demonized in those groups now. They talk poor of us because they say we're right-wing nut jobs and what have you. And it's just comes with the territory. But we feel the burden of the weight of it. We spent a lifetime that we believed in, that we're here to do the greater good. And we just couldn't sit around and not be part of the fight.
And I think that's the same for anybody, no matter what your walk of life is. You don't have to have been some, ninja, Delta Force, cyborg assassin. If you're a mother or a father, you're fighting the fight right now too. I mean, we're all in this, and we either better wake up and realize that, because again, going back to the beginning, MK Ultra, social conditioning, social media, we're being led like sheep to the slaughter.
Yeah.
And you got to wake up, and you got to start waking up people around you, and
I like what you said, because I said all the time as well, is that it doesn't matter your walk of life. You don't have to be a guy turning on cameras to talk. Do it everywhere. I mean, this is almost even, I'm a middle-aged man talking to a camera most nights of the week. You know what I mean? So, you can do it in other ways, and my way or Mark's way is no better than your way. And we're all in this together, and we have to do it together. We have to stick together. And that's whenever Mark says, come up and sit at the big boy table, because constantly you see these guys that just get offended, and they're supposed to be on our team. They get offended for the stupidest things. They're mad at the world. Look, we're all pissed off. We're all pissed off. You're pissed off. We're pissed off too. You know what I mean? But we realize being angry and attacking each other is not the way to win this.
We can argue about whether you should be showing your muscles off somewhere down the road after we've won the battle. Yeah. Let's just win the battle first, and then we could say Jack's t-shirts are too tight or whatever. Our little
they get mad about that, dude.
Yeah, seriously,
mad about that.
Really, that's what we're talking about. Oh my God, whatever, man. That's just so. And honestly, but just think about it. We're making a joke about it. And this is my final comment on that point. That's exactly how we've been conditioned to think. And that's how some of us have been led into responding and how we react to things. And that's exactly what evil wants us to do.
Amen. And some people ask where can they find Mark. Centerline Systems. He makes our belts and our med kits. And we got them on site, blackscoutsurvival.com. Go pick them up. We just got a restock of med kits. So they're there. you need a medical kit. If you need anything, you need a freaking medical kit. And the belt and the med kit, Mark and I designed over years, man. I mean, we ran the belt for I don't know how long, but we've sold hundreds of thousands of these things, and they are top of the line. You know, he and I came together, brainstormed his experience, my experience, and we put these things together to make the absolute best. Listen, there's no better medical kit than the one we designed. I promise you. And I'm not saying that because that's the one. I'm saying that we made that because that's what the best one that you can put together. And so, just like the belts, you know, we have hidden pockets in it because, you know, I used to teach a lot of escape and evasion, anti-kidnapping, counter surveillance stuff. Mark come from the agency, and you know, these sort of things that we put together to, and they're all American made as well. But you know, support American small business. You need gear, definitely a med kit. You're more likely to need a medical kit than you are a gun. And so, yeah. Centerline Systems, he sells a lot of other great things. You know, we got the titanium canteens coming in soon, and he makes one of the best. He makes the best carrier for it, and I think he's the guy who invented the carrier. I don't think anybody else had him previous to Mark. So Centerline Systems, make sure you go subscribe to his YouTube channel. Check out his gear. You can buy his gear direct from him. We sell the medical kits and the belts on our side, so you can get those at blackscoutsurvival.com. And just go see what he has to offer. Support him. He's a good man. He's a patriot, and one of the guys I trust. So anyway, guys, I do appreciate you hanging out with me tonight. And take us out, Mark.
Yeah, I just got one last thing to say. I mean, just kind of following up on what you're just talking about, but tying into community and then also tying it into PsyOps and social conditioning and all this stuff is like, dude, you know, fight through that stuff. Keep punching through that stuff. You're in the ring. You're like Rocky, you know, just cut me, Rock, you know, or whatever, you know, like. But you got to find those allies. And I think you're doing a great job of that. And I'm not, again, that's not patronizing. I'm not trying to push anything. But again, I read the comments of all the people who watch your videos, and I think you've got a great community. And that really it is right there. Fight through the bullshit, fight through the programming, fight through I'm just going to label everybody this and label everybody that. Like, start thinking. You know, well, that's my little stupid model. Keep thinking, keep moving, never quit. But that ties in so much into who you are and what you're trying to accomplish and what you are accomplishing. That would be my final thing. No matter what happens next, you just, you know, don't give up hope. I mean, like, you know, keep freaking reaching out. Don't ever give up. I mean, I don't know if that kind of was a weird way to end it. But
no, it's true. Never quit. Well, I'm gonna let you give out give us final words, man. Lead us out.
I'm so jealous of your t-shirts, and you know, I don't know. I got nothing, sir. Thank you very much for having me on here tonight. I really appreciate it. Jack is correct. I'm old, and it's way past my bedtime or my Metamucil or whatever I'm supposed to take, but that's bullshit. But no, seriously, thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah, brother. Thank you for taking the time. I know it's late. And make sure you go follow Mark, Centerline Systems. Centerline Systems, his website. Get some gear or get it from us. And guys, we're going to stay frosty, stay strapped, and always say it, Mark.
Stay mother effing dangerous.
All right. Take care, guys.